Wuthering Waves has a very unique cast of 4-star characters when you start the game. You get Yang Yang, Qixia, Baizhi, Sanhua, and Yanwu for free. Among the other 4-star characters that exist, you'll have to pull for Dungeon, Mortefi, Alto, and Taoqi. Now, it goes without saying that the 4 stars are worse than the 5 stars. However, because of the type of game that Wuwa is, the 4 stars can be vital for certain content. I'm Void Enigma, and I'll be going over how the 4 stars in this game can function and might even be future-proof. As of this video, there hasn't been an announcement for any new 4 stars, which is a tad bit disturbing, as I would love to see more 4 stars introduced, but the current band of 4-star characters set up a very good foundation for the game. Among the 4 stars who are somewhat future-proof in their roles, we have Mortefi, Taoqi, Alto, Dungeon, and Sanhua. These characters have insane outro buffs of a certain type of attack. Sanhua, Taoqi, and Mortefi buffing it to an insane margin of 38% for basic attack, skill damage, and heavy attack. Of those 5 characters, their main goal is to use their outro buff in supporting the main character or the main DPS, but Dungeon is a whole ass DPS on her own. Taoqi, however, has the slowest concerto generation, which can make her feel clunky to play, but she can be vital for a character who strictly uses their resonant skill in the future. Also, on the other hand, doesn't really seem to have much use now since his buff is 23% to aerial damage, and Mortefi, on the other hand, buffs heavy attack to 38%, so in the case of the only 5-star aerial DPS, which is Jian, Mortefi is just miles better since all of Jian's damage is considered heavy attack. Mortefi just functions as a better DPS overall, since he also adds coordinated attacks as well. Besides Taoqi, each character can quickly swap in, do damage, and swap out, buffing the main carry. And even Taoqi can do it once you get max refinements on the Discord Broadblade, or you can actually just really learn how to optimize her rotations to make the best use out of her. This is easily done by swapping between your healer and Taoqi in order to actually max her Concerto gauge quickly, but it still takes more time than other characters. Now, if you noticed, each character buffs a specific thing, which means that whenever a character comes out that has one of these things, basic attack, heavy attack, resonant skill, aerial damage, havoc damage dealer, then they automatically become a recommended partner with them. This is a great way to make certain 4 stars feel usable. In the future, even if they are power crept, you don't have to replace them if you don't have the Astrites. Yang Yang is also criminally underrated, as she recovers 25 energy on her outro for the incoming character. The issue with this, however, is that you can get past this problem just by building more energy recharge on your characters, but when the day comes when a character is released who strictly has to use their Resonance Liberation for damage, then Yang Yang would be a solid fit. Now, let's talk about Yanwu as well, who is also very underrated from the start. I was pleasantly surprised to see that he complements Jinshi so well. Thanks to his sub DPS damage constantly doing damage, and he's able to actually help break the enemies much faster, even he found a place as a designated 4-star support, which is great. Baizhi is Baizhi, being the best and only 4-star healer. She is literally a mini Verena, offering damage amplification and healing, so she's just great to build as well. Alright, now, let's talk about the main damage dealers, Qixia. Any other character can also be considered a main damage dealer as well, but Qixia and Dungeon fit this role like a glove. And Dungeon doubles as a havoc buffer, while Qixia just goes all into damage, and her outro actually is a nuke as well. For a 4-star, these characters feel complete. Qixia does have slight issues against bosses that are extremely aggressive because she wants to fire off a resonant skill for an extended period of time to utilize her boom boom. However, her dodge counter is pretty nice and you'll have to play her this way and then use the big damaging skill during certain windows. Also, her boom boom really goes boom. Qixia's damage is pretty good and she can clear a lot of content thanks to the fact that she prefers distance and she has a lot of mobility. I recently got her to level 60 and reluctantly equipped her with the level 60 gun, which belonged to Mortefi, specializing in energy recharge mind you, so she can really put in work at this level. Imagine her with her actual good weapon. I love using her, as I really love characters who specialize in dual guns. I am aiming for the 4-star gun in the gacha, but I'm stuck at 40p, so there's no sign of standard fates coming. I guess I'll just have to bide my time. Dungeon is also extremely powerful and a great partner for Havoc Rover. You can do the double Dreamless swap to quickly take out mobs, and she is just great. If you build these characters for damage, their damage output can actually be insane, which is crazy as well. They won't match up to the 5 stars, but they still do respectable damage. None of the 4 stars are immediate trash units or fodder. They have a place in the future, and while a 5 star may replace them, they'll still be the second option, and that's great. As I mentioned earlier, I do have concerns as they have not released any new 4-star characters, as we have Alto and Dungeon buffing Aerial and Havoc damage by 23% respectively. We have 5 stars who also buff and deal a lot of damage with Yinlin and Changli, buffing not only fusion and electro damage by 20%, but also resonance liberation damage by 25%. The difference between the 4-star and 5 stars, I guess. Still though, you do get the edge for the 4 stars having that 3%, I guess. Glacio and Spectral still lack a designated outro buffer, but in due time, I guess. I would expect that they would follow the same roles as Yinlin and Chun-Li, but we'll have to see how they actually take care of that in the future. The great thing about these characters though is that their sequences seem great, except arguably Taochi and Alto, but even they get a few good ones. Yang Yang, Dungeon, Mortefi, and Sanhua all buff their damage with sequences, and at C6 they offer a team-wide 20% attack buff to boot. Mortefi also gets double the duration of his Resonance Liberation, which is great to increase the team-wide damage. Baiji unlocks a Return by Death, Enhanced Healing, and she also provides a Glacio damage buff to the entire team when an on-field character picks up the Euphonia that's dropped. Yanwu lets the on-field character get a massive shield at S4 and also buffs the team's defense at S6. Chixia is also focused on increasing her damage, but her last sequences buffs all characters' basic attack by 25% when triggering her Boom Boom. Alto's sequences focuses directly on his own personal damage, so he'll be doing more damage on field, but he won't be providing any utility for the team. And lastly, Taochi's buffs also adjust her personal damage and lets your shield last for 30 seconds. There was a time when her S6 actually buffed the on-field character's heavy attack by about 40%, which would have made her absolutely insane, but they were quick to fix that issue. These are the buffs that you get along the way of playing the game, as you'll naturally get sequences when pulling for characters, and while some have a much higher impact than others, they are all at least useful. Unfortunately for Taochi and Alto, they don't offer much team utility, which makes them less valuable, but maybe the damage buff that they receive will actually allow them to do enough damage to make up for that difference over the rotation. Currently, the 4 stars in the game are in a really good place. None of them release with too much power like in other certain games, Bennett, Zhengling, and Xingqiu, so they won't be staple for the meta for the next 4 years. I love when a game has flexible units, which allows you to actually build flexible teams. For Havoc Rover, you can use either Sanhua or Dungeon and get similar results, and as more characters come out, hopefully this will keep up. Of course, on the other side of the coin, it's possible that this flexibility will end, as when 5-star replacements come out, which is inevitable, they will most likely be best in slot for these specific roles, but by no means will they be a requirement. It would be absolutely great if there were no overlapping roles, but it is bound to happen. Hopefully, Kurogame will do an excellent job of balancing and keeping power check to a minimum. We will have to wait and see how they actually take care of this though. I'd just like to see that the 4 stars in this game are all in a usable state and can function in many different teams if you're willing to put up with some of their slight weaknesses. The only place where this might not be non-negotiable is with the Tower of Adversity when you're up against a timer, but with all the other content, especially stuff like the holograms, you're free to use everything that you want because you're generally given plenty of time. This is a really good step as all characters don't feel overly clunky and aren't slacked with a massive limitation for just no reason. Let me know what you all think of the 4 stars in this game in the comments below. Go ahead and leave a like on this video as well if you found it entertaining, as that by itself helps keep the channel alive. Consider subscribing as well. This has been Void Enigma, and until next time, Enigma out.